In 12,209 BC, if you stood where the Palk Strait is today, between southern India and Sri Lanka, you would not have seen water, you would have seen land. Continuous, walkable, dry land stretching from the Indian coast to the island we now call Sri Lanka. The sea level was approximately 120 meters lower than it is today. The shallow seabed between India and Sri Lanka, most of which is less than 12 meters deep, was entirely above water. There was no strait, there was no gap, there was no need for a bridge. And yet the Ramayana describes one being built. This is a problem that almost no one discusses. The standard narrative treats Ram Setu, the bridge described in the Ramayana, as evidence that the epic recalls a real construction across the Palk Strait. Satellite imagery shows a chain of limestone shoals and sandbars stretching 48 kilometers between Rameshwaram and Mannar Island. Some claim this is the remnant of the ancient bridge. Others dismiss it as a natural geological formation. But both sides are arguing about the wrong question. Because if the Ramayana dates to approximately 12,000 BC, as researcher Nilesh Oak has proposed, based on over 500 astronomical references in the text, then there was no water to bridge. The sea level data is not in dispute. Professor Glenn Milne at the University of Ottawa, who has collaborated with Oak on this question, has published detailed models of post-glacial sea level change. During the last glacial maximum, roughly 20,000 years ago, global sea levels were approximately 130 meters below present levels. By 12,000 BC, they had risen to approximately 120 meters below present. The Palk Strait, with an average depth of less than 12 meters, was dry land throughout this entire period. The flooding of this land bridge began in earnest after approximately 10,000 BC, as the great ice sheets of the northern hemisphere collapsed and meltwater poured into the oceans. By approximately 5,000 BC, sea levels had risen close to their current position, and the land connection between India and Sri Lanka was submerged. So the question becomes, why does the Ramayana describe building a bridge across a gap that did not yet exist? There are three possible explanations. The first is that the Ramayana does not date to 12,000 BC, and the bridge was built across actual water at a much later date. This is the conventional position, but it requires discarding the 500 astronomical references that Oak has tested against planetarium simulations, all of which converge on a date no later than 10,000 BC. That is a significant body of evidence to set aside. The second is that the seafloor was not static. The assumption that the current depth of the Palk Strait reflects its ancient depth is precisely that, an assumption. Tectonic activity, isostatic adjustment, sediment loading, and seismic events can all alter the relative height of land and sea over thousands of years. Oak has noted that the region experienced significant geological activity. A major earthquake measuring over 7 on the Richter scale has been dated to approximately 5,500 BC in the waters off the Indian coast, based on seismological research from the Cochin region. The land between India and Sri Lanka sits on an active geological zone. Consider three scenarios. If the land between the two coasts behaved like a brittle material under tectonic stress, it could have fractured and subsided, creating a channel even while surrounding sea levels remained low. If it behaved like a viscous material, it could have stretched and thinned, gradually sinking below the waterline. And if the underlying geology included compressed strata that were released as the land masses shifted, portions of the seabed could have risen or fallen unpredictably. We do not know which of these scenarios, if any, applies. But the assumption that the Palk Strait was uniformly dry at 12,000 BC simply because global sea levels were low enough to expose it is not necessarily correct. Local geological conditions can override global averages. The third explanation is the most intriguing. The Ramayana may be recording a localized geological feature, a channel or depression within the otherwise exposed land bridge that required crossing. Not an ocean strait, but a river channel, a tidal inlet, or a fault line depression that interrupted the land route. The text does not describe crossing a vast ocean. It describes constructing a causeway using rocks and trees across a specific gap. Now consider what else the Ramayana tells us about the geography of its time. Because the bridge is not the only feature that does not match modern India, the Ramayana mentions the river Saraswati, but not the grand, mighty Saraswati of the Rig Veda, described there as the greatest of rivers, surpassing even the Ganga. In the Ramayana, the Saraswati is diminished. It appears and disappears. It flows underground. It is not the dominant river of the landscape. This is precisely what geological evidence predicts for the period around 12,000 BC. The Saraswati's flow was fed primarily by two tributaries, the Sutlej from the northwest and the Yamuna from the east. The Ramayana specifically describes the Sutlej as having already turned westward, away from the Saraswati, and it describes the Yamuna as already flowing into the Ganga, not the Saraswati. Both of these diversions are confirmed by geological evidence. Michel Danino's research in The Lost River documents the Saraswati's decline, with substantial water flow in the riverbed occurring between approximately 9000 and 4000 BC, driven by intensified monsoon patterns during that period. If the Ramayana dates to 12,000 BC, it sits just before the period when monsoon intensification would have temporarily revived the Saraswati. The text's description of a reduced, intermittent river matches the climatological window precisely. There is one more detail that is easy to overlook. The Ramayana mentions 3 Vedas, not 4. The Atharvaveda is absent. Ram is described as learned in 3 Vedas, not the 4 that later tradition recognizes. The Mahabharata, which Oak dates to approximately 5561 BC, also references 3 Vedas. If both texts predate the composition or compilation of the Atharvaveda, this is exactly what we would expect. A text written after the Atharvaveda existed would have no reason to omit it. This creates a consistent internal chronology. The Rigveda describes a grand Saraswati, placing it during the river's peak flow between 9000 and 4000 BC. The Ramayana describes a diminished Saraswati, with its tributaries already diverted, placing it before 9000 BC. Both the Ramayana and Mahabharata mention only 3 Vedas, placing them before the Atharvaveda. And over 500 astronomical references independently date the Ramayana to approximately 12,000 BC. The geography matches the geology, the rivers match the climatology, the Vedic references match the textual chronology, and the astronomy matches the precession. Return to the bridge. Whatever Ram Setu was, whether a causeway across a tectonic channel, a crossing over a tidal inlet, or a construction across a gap we can no longer identify, it existed in a landscape that has been completely transformed by 12,000 years of rising seas, shifting rivers, and geological change. The Palk Strait, as we know it, did not exist when the Ramayana's sky was overhead. The Saraswati, as the Rigveda knew it, did not exist when Ram walked its banks. The land between India and Lanka was not the land we see today. The text is not wrong about the geography. We are looking at the wrong geography.